It's like 2. I can't sleep, so I figured it's as good a time as any is to get some reading done and make a video. So, welcome to Action Bastard Academy. Well, Academy After Dark, I guess we'll call it, since it's nighttime. Anyway, I just went ahead and read Beastars Chapter 1, Introduction Upon a Full Moon. And I gotta say, it was interesting to say the least. My first, I don't know, it was interesting. Being the first chapter, I definitely got some insight into the story. It started out as a murder, like straight up. One of the students, like opening scene, is just running through the halls, running through his life. Find out later that student's name is Tim the alpaca, right? And what you get to see in the beginning is his murder by someone at the school, straight up. Well, at least that's what is implied. What was happening? He's running through the halls. He burst through a door called Lecture Hall 2, right? And he's holding the door shut. It's nighttime, by the way. He's holding the door shut, and there's a predator on the other end of the door. It's obscured. You don't get to see the person's face. Assuming it is a male, right? You don't get to see the face, and you get to hear Tim's inner monologue about how, we had, I thought we were friends. We had classes together, stuff like that. So it's someone he knows. It's someone that Tim knows, right? And the situation is just terrifying because, he's a small little alpaca, and what's chasing him, it's not shown which type of animal is chasing him. You only get to see the silhouette, but you have some idea. You have an idea of what the animal might be. The features that were shown was it's big, most definitely, from when he was standing by the door, broad, definitely shown it had a long tail, but that might have just been the shadow being casted. That was kind of exaggerating some of its features. So I personally have an idea of who it might be, but there are a couple people, like off the bat, that I think who have done it already. Anyway, moving on. So Tim has his last stand. The door gets busted down. Whoever's on the other end is much stronger than him, being a carnivore, whereas Tim, the alpaca, he's a herbivore, right? So Tim has his last stand, and he calls whoever's chasing him out, just calls him out. It's like, you're just a monster. Like, you never thought of us as equals, but you're wrong about us herbivores. We aren't equals. We're superior to you carnivores, which is kind of interesting. His last words before he dies, and it ends on a sad note because he's like, there's still so many things that I wanted to do. So that was pretty sad. And then you get to see the mouth of the killer. He has a couple of sharp canines in the front, so most definitely meat eater. And Tim gets devoured on the spot. So after that, you jump to the 701 boys. It's a bunch of dogs just playing cards. Apparently they didn't do their homework, so they're just chilling outside, just playing cards to pass the time. And then you see students getting riled up, and they're like, hey, what's going on? One of the students, her name is Anon, or Anon. It's a female donkey student. She gives Jack, you don't say the name, but I just know the name because my introduction was chapter 123, so I'm kind of familiar with the 701 boys already, and it's kind of like who the characters are already. But I do know Jack, though. He's kind of hard to forget. But she gives Jack this book, and she makes reference to the 701 boys being roommates with Legoshi, or Legoshi. I say Legoshi a lot, so I'll just stick with Legoshi, who's their roommate. And Jack is like, oh, why don't you just give it to him? And Anon's like, after a carnivore just got devoured? No, I don't think so. Too risky. So she just gives Jack the book and she just dips. So the school's kind of like uneasy right now because there's just been a devouring that just took place. And from what I gather, at the school, it's not segregated at all. You have carnivores and you have herbivores all at the same school, just going to classes together, which I think is kind of interesting. Um, yeah, from the reaction, this doesn't happen like a lot, like much of any. It's kind of rare, I believe, the devourings are. So we jump ahead and we see, after they mention Legoshi, you get to see your first, I guess, your introduction to Legoshi. Well, actually, I wouldn't even say that's an introduction because Legoshi is introduced a little later. But you get to see him. He's in the shadow of a tree, and he's just, I guess, he's fidgeting like with his claws and stuff like that. He just looks very suspect, which was very much done on purpose, I believe. So, because later on, we get to see that drama club is basically where I guess the next setting is happening at. Legoshi's part of the drama club, and the president comes in who's an albatross. I thought he was a duck, but apparently he's an albatross. He's the president of drama club, and he's like, everyone, gather around. I have important news. Completely oblivious to the situation until he looks up. The herbivores and the carnivores are separated in the room. They're like, yeah, I'm not getting near them. And it's kind of like a Mexican standoff between them. They're like, no, I don't think so. A student just got devoured, and you can tell what's on everyone's mind. The herbivores feel very uncomfortable around the carnivores, right? So the carnivores take offense to that, and they're like, you herbivores are always talking crap about us behind our back, and the herbivores are like, well, one of our herbivore just got eaten, and we don't feel comfortable, we can't trust you, and stuff like that. So they're about to start fighting. There's this tiger there. He's kind of a loudmouth. He's very outspoken. I like the tiger. Anyway, and he's calling out the herbivores on their BS. And it's getting very heated in there. And all of a sudden the lights go out, right? So everyone's freaking out, like, oh my god, it's dark in here, the lights are out. What happened? And, the lights come back on, and this is the introduction to Legoshi. He's like, oh, I guess circuit tripped or something like that. It's okay, I fixed the lights now. Now, what I got from that is, just from the context clues that happened later, Legoshi turned off the lights on purpose to kind of like calm everyone down in a way by kind of like distracting them, and ironically enough, putting himself at the center of attention. When he turned the lights back on, he drew all the attention and the hostility onto himself, because one of the students, I think it was a tiger or something like that. I forgot his name, but one of the students asks Legoshi, like, "Oh, Tim the alpaca, you were close with Tim, weren't you? Do you know anything that happened?" Because I believe Legoshi is kind of being looked at with suspicion. He's a suspect in all this because he was close with Tim the alpaca, apparently, and everyone's looking at him, and Legoshi's like, yeah, I don't know. Tim probably had a lot of regrets before he died or whatever. Legoshi's kind of, his whole speech is kind of like shady, it's kind of awkward, it's weird. Like his whole character is just kind of, I don't know how to describe him yet. I'm just gonna say awkward, like his choice of words, his body language, his speech. It's kind of unnerving considering what just happened to the students, right? So Legoshi comes down, because the students want to talk to him. And oh, something of note I noticed after the light thing. Before all that happened, there was a female squirrel asking if anyone can help crack her nuts, right? So, um, as a callback to that, Legoshi, as soon as he comes down, he goes straight to the squirrel, sticks his hand in her bag, and just cracks the nuts for her. So, that's what I get. A little bit of insight into Legoshi's character, looking past the things that he's saying, I'm looking at his actions. My impression from this, Legoshi's a helpful person. That's just what I got from this. Like, he was like, he wasn't even in the scene before he got introduced, but he was most definitely listening. And even with all that going on, with the students fighting, he heard that the squirrel needed help cracking nuts, didn't have a nutcracker, so afterward, even with all eyes on him, he goes over and he helps her, and he just cracks her nuts. And she's kind of shocked by it, given the atmosphere of the room. It's kind of a weird thing to do. She's like, oh, thank you very much for helping me, right? So after that, Legoshi singles out a female student. She's I think she was a sheep, an Angaran sheep or something like that. I forget the exact species, but she's a sheep. Damn it. So, and he's like, I'm pretty sure Tim had a lot of, regrets before he died. Anyone would if they died so suddenly, or something along those lines. And then he singles her out. He's like, how about you, Els? How are you feeling right now? How do you feel about Tim's death, right? So he's looking at her. She's looking back, and she's just like, what the hell? Why would someone say that? The scene skips, and it's her talking with, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say her, I should be specific, Els. Els the sheep. She's talking with more female students in the girls' locker room, talking about Legoshi and how he's so weird about him calling, Els out, putting her on the spot, right? And then, she's saying, like, how creepy, Legoshi is, like girl talk in the locker room, right? And apparently that made Els sad. It made her upset because she was crying in the locker room. I'm not sure how close Tim and Els were, but, emotions are high because, that's a student that they went to school with, And Legoshi, what he said might have been sort of insensitive, putting, Els on the spot. So she's walking home with the student after the fact, right? They go their separate ways. And another cut, you see Legoshi. He's in the boys' locker room, right? The students are still arguing about, oh man, now that Tim died at the worst time, like, who's gonna take over his role? Because apparently in the drama club, Tim had a very important role, and something that was brought up while they were arguing, like on the stage, is how maybe a carnivore killed Tim because they wanted Tim's role or something like that, something petty like that, But then again, I don't know how important this drama club is though. Because I remember they said that it was an award-winning drama club. So I don't know if it has some type of prestige to it, but there could be a motive for the murder like that. I don't know. So anyway, it's a tiger again. He's making noise about it. He's very loud. And then, they're talking about, finding a replacement and stuff like that. What are they going to do? But again, more attention is drawn to Legoshi, right? You see him closing his locker. Well, what we think is his locker at first. And then he's like, oh yeah, I fixed the stage light. I'm going to leave now. And then the tiger calls Legoshi out. He's like, hey, that wasn't your locker, Legoshi. That was Tim's locker. What were you doing in there? Right? So, more suspect points for Legoshi. He's like, oh, I was just getting a book that I loaned Tim. So, but he's dead now, so I just thought I'd get it myself. Or something like that. And they're like, They're like you shouldn't be going through Tim's stuff like that. But the president's like, he's just kind of done with everything. The albatross, he's just like, it's Legoshi. Like, we should believe him. He's a nice student and whatever. But just be careful, because if it had been a herbivore that saw you doing that, you would have been in trouble, Legoshi, because tension and stuff is high at the school right now. If Tim was the lead, I guess he was fairly popular too. If Tim was the lead, that's a high profile victim that just got murdered, like devoured at the school, right? So it would have been bad news. So the albatross just gives him an advice, and Legoshi. It's funny. Well, it's interesting to note that he said what he says. He's like I'm always being like mistrusted or something like that, because I guess him being a very large carnivore, there might be this stigma to him, based on his outside appearance, So afterward, we cut back to Els, and she's walking home. No, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead. Legoshi, he's walking outside. It's a full moon, and he's saying, Tim, I'm gonna finish what you started. He's looking at the full moon's fists are clenched, and he has resolved, or at least that's how I read it in my head. Because words on a page. He's like, he has his resolve. I'm gonna finish what you started, whatever that means, right? So we cut back to Els, right? And she's walking home, and she's like, oh wait, I forgot I forgot my watch back at what's it called, drama club or something like that, right? She's like, I need to go get that. I can't just leave that behind. It's funny to note, something I had to reread. She's like, my boyfriend gave me that watch, and I'm like, were her and Tim dating? Was it Tim that's her boyfriend? Apparently, we find out later. No, she already had a boyfriend, and I feel like that's very sad in a way, for reasons I'll explain later. But anyway, she gets to the drama club, right? While she gets there, and it's dark on the inside, and the setting's looking kind of familiar, from what we've seen before. The night of Tim's murder, it was dark. The room was awfully familiar. It was very similar, and it's kind of like a mirror of what was happening a little bit, because while Els is there in the dark, you see a spotlight come on, and it's Legoshi, at the top of the little balcony. On the top of the balcony, he's like, hey Els, what are you doing here? And then she's like, Legoshi, what are you doing here? He was like, oh, I followed you here. I came back when I saw you, heading back this way. So I figured I'd just catch you while you're here, since there's no one around. All red flags for Legoshi. That's terrifying, A student just got murdered, and then you're being cornered by this gigantic canine, So it's definitely an awkward scene to watch. Terrifying from the perspective of a herbivore, right? And then to rub it in more, Legoshi's like, the spotlight, I adjusted it like yesterday. I was gonna use it for Tim and his performance. I adjusted it so the light could complement his shiny coat. But it looks good on you. You look just like Tim, right? So Els is getting nervous. She's getting very scared of Legoshi, and she has every right to be. This is kind of uncalled for, It's creepy to a whole new level, to like a stalker type of level. So Els is backing up. She's scared, and Legoshi jumps down off the balcony, and he starts approaching Els, right? Els kind of has a similar train of thought to what Tim had. She's like, stay back, don't come any closer, don't underestimate me. Like, she pulls out a pair of scissors to defend herself, because she thinks Legoshi has bad intentions. She has every right to think this, like, from how he was acting earlier, towards Els and stuff like that, staring at her. Like, the girl is terrified of Legoshi. So he keeps moving in. And then, she's like, don't come any closer. You can't don't underestimate us herbivores. You know, we're not as weak as we seem. Just stuff like that. So Legoshi moves in and he grabs the scissors from Els, right? Els isn't listening to Legoshi. He's like, hey, Els, put that down. Come over here. Come over here. Right? She's not listening. Why would she in that situation? So anyway, he grabs the scissors from Els, right? And it's funny, when Els thinks she's going to die, just like Tim did at that point, how she describes Legoshi, like his strength in particular from when he grabbed the scissors, she describes him like a demon, right? Which mirrors Tim when he died, because he called whoever killed him a monster. You're all monsters. That's what he said. That's the herbivore perspective of carnivores, especially in situations like this. That's their mind going to the default. Because I don't know how long they've been in school together, or how well they know each other. They go to the same classes, but that's about it. If it's anything like high school, you're gonna have your own groups. Herbivores with herbivores, carnivores with carnivores. You might have some odd groups, mix and match, like herbivores with carnivores. But I don't know how prevalent that is in a school like this. Anyway, moving on. So something drops from Legoshi, and it's a letter, and he's like, "Oh, no, pick that up." Els is freaked out. She's like, "What? It's for you. That Tim wanted you to have it." So she picks up the letter, and then we cut to a scene with them on the balcony. They're on like a balcony, like sitting over the edge, looking at the moon, and Els is reading a letter that was apparently from Tim, but he died. So we see a little flashback of Legoshi, because they mentioned that Tim and Legoshi were close. They were friends, apparently, So what Tim was trying to do day after day was he was trying to give this letter to Els, right? Because high school crush. Tim had a crush on Els. Els was unaware of it. So that confirms that Els was not Tim's boyfriend in any way, right? And, Legoshi being Tim's friend, was kind of wise as to what Tim was trying to do. And the reason he was in the locker earlier in the chapter was to, give the letter to Els. Well, it was to retrieve the letter so he could give it to Els, because Tim couldn't do it because he's dead now. That's his friend, and he's dead, which is sad. He met an untimely end, and he was young. So I guess this is a way that he kind of fulfilled his friend's dying wish. Well, at least one of his wishes, because I'm sure Tim wanted to be alive. He wanted to live. That couldn't happen. You can't always get what you want, but you have other people to pick up the slack for you, so you can get pretty damn close. So I guess that was his way of making peace with the fact that Tim's no longer there. Which is pretty sad. So Els, she apologizes to Legoshi, right? And Legoshi's like, you're fine and stuff, but just don't tell anyone about this. I don't want anyone knowing who Tim's first love is, But Els is like, what about you? I said so many nasty things about you, in the locker room. And Legoshi's just like, don't worry about that. I'm used to being hated. It's just, I'm used to it, which is sad. I don't really know the perspective. I need more this is only chapter 1, but it's good because there are undertones that I feel like that's going to reflect through the rest of the series, Most definitely. I have questions that need answers. Chapter 1 was good. So he's walking away. Els makes a comment about how Legoshi is awkward. He's pretty weird, right? And it is. He is pretty weird. We don't know why yet. I don't know why yet. especially from what I've seen, because as I've mentioned, I started with chapter 123, right? And what I see, the legacy that I've seen there is much different, or at least the vibe that I was getting, right? He was much different than the legacy I'm still seeing here. This legacy is still very much in his shell, awkward, you know, and he's sad, and I can't tell. I'm just gonna guess right now. You know, his friend just died. You know, anyone would be in their feelings. Anyone would be feeling down. You know, it's just a sad situation to have someone you know that you've seen every day there, and then one day you wake up and then they're just gone, just like that. And one of the students, they were lamenting that fact. You know, uh, we've had this happen even when I was in high school. You know, like wow, we used to see him every day, and now he's just gone. You know, poor Tim, poor people who knew Tim. You know, so I thought it just I don't know. This first chapter, it gave me the same feeling that I got with 123. It feels real, like the dialogue, the whole scenario that happened. It's like, oh no, like most anime you see, like oh no, a student died, and then they'll forget about, and then they'll I don't know, life goes on. But with this, it feels very real. The response is very real. You're animals, right? A school divided from carnivores and herbivores. Of course, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be drama. There's going to be some stigma. And I'm very interested to see how that develops along the story. So, and what's really sad about this? The fact that, when Els went to go get the watch, her thought bubble, Els already has a boyfriend, So, for all we knew, Els wasn't even thinking about Tim whatsoever, So the love that the affection he had for this girl, this other goat, female goat, it may have been unrequited, And I feel like that's understated in the chapter because only Els knows. There's no other reference to her having a boyfriend. The only reason we know it is because we get to see her in her thoughts when she lost her watch. She's like, oh, my boyfriend gave me that, He didn't say ex-boyfriend, so I assume she has a boyfriend now, And Tim apparently didn't know that. At least that's what I'm guessing. If he did, why would he be giving her, a love letter? So that's sad, but at the same time, that's real. It's very real. So it's just small stuff. It's just small details like that I appreciate. It shows that the character, even though I don't know how important she's gonna be, or how important Tim's death is gonna be. From the vibe I was getting from this was like murder mystery, But it just feels real. The character has a life outside of the boy who was crushing on her, and stuff like that. A life that he probably didn't even know about. She's just going about her life. She has her own boyfriend, stuff like that, and he didn't know. And then, he just so happened to have a friend he was very close with that decided to fulfill his wish, in order to get some closure. And I feel like that's admirable, and that speaks volumes to Legoshi's character, because even how he was, how he set his resolve, during the full moon, like, I will avenge Tim, it seemed sinister, the way he was saying it without context, but with context of knowing that, oh, he was actually friends with Tim, having that context, it makes you feel for Legoshi, kinda, So, yeah, just stuff like that makes the story feel real. So, let me double back. The killer, the murderer, Tim's murderer, the one who ate him. I don't know if it's alright. So this is the problem. This is why when I read manga, I try not to look for any type of sources, because I want to go into it with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. because, you know, when I get introduced to a murder, this is a byproduct of me watching Case Closed or Detective Conan. That's what it's called. You know, I'm like, okay, who's the killer? Who did it? A detail that they mentioned was that it was someone that Tim knew, right? Even Tim himself said it before he died. He's like, you know, while he was running away, we had classes together. You really gonna eat me? So, were they close? Even in drama club, the herbivores mentioned that the only carnivores that Tim was close with was the carnivores in this club, as far as they knew. You know, their information might be incomplete. So I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, so it's gonna be a select group of people, right? Because this is only chapter 1. So I went back to the first page of when he was being chased, and I was trying to make out the silhouette of who could possibly be chasing him. Because there's small details, like there's damage on the wall. I'm sorry, the door to, what was it called? The lecture hall. Lecture hall 2, that's where they were. And, I'd like to say, I like the small details of when Tim was holding the door to the lecture hall. You could see on the side there's this poster saying, an exam poster saying what the students should study, and next to that poster, it was a small sign saying carnivores shouldn't use their claws to scratch up like school property or something like that. And if they damage property with their claws, they'll be held liable. I just thought that was pretty cool. I like looking for small details like that within the story, just because it adds world building, just a little bit. It adds character to the world when you have stuff like that, because if you have animals with claws and stuff, they're more than likely that don't follow them. They're more than like gonna damage something, and they're at a school and stuff costs money. They want to keep it nice. I just thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, I got sidetracked. So yeah, I was looking back and I was trying to make it out. I was like, who could have killed him? It looks like a wolf, because I was looking at the snout, right? And I was like, okay, that's kind of a long snout. And I was looking at the tail, and I was like, maybe that's just the shadow being stretched a little bit, right? And I was looking at the build, right? Because they're standing like this, the light outside, so you just get to see the shadowy silhouette. So they're like this, right? So it's someone broad, right? So I'm like, who the hell could have done it? Legoshi is on the list for now, right? But I was looking at the ears, and I was like, the ears, they're not like Legoshi's. Legoshi's are kind of pointed, right? Right? So I was like, okay, what about that tiger that I saw in the drama club, the loud one? I don't know who he is. I like him though. Maybe him. Maybe he's kind of big too. I was comparing him to the door. He's pretty damn big. So I was like, it has to be someone I've seen already. It has to be someone we know. But I looked closer, thinking back to Detective Conan, and I was like, I looked down. All it took was me looking down, and I'm pretty sure I figured out what killed him. I'm not sure who, because I don't know the name yet. I'm not into spoilers, but if I were to be spoiled, I would. Spoilers don't bother me. All I can say is that, alright, all I care about is how we get there. I don't really care much about the details, being spoiled to the details, As long as, how we got there makes sense. That's all I cared about. So, I'll show you what I mean. I have the book, I have the manga right here. So, if it's someone that's in drama club, it's someone that they know, right? So, here, I'll show you this page. Look at, can you see it? Look at look down, right? Look at the shoes, right? That's the killer. You see it? Looks like a canine, doesn't it? Right? Okay. Now, look at this right here. See it? See the ears? You see the body in relation to the door? And then you see this, right? I'm looking at the snout. Like, how humans are, we look at the face, right? We look at the eyes. I think it might have been a red herring. But then I thought what stood out was the shoes, most of all, because I was looking down, right? Compared to, Tim the Alpaca's shoes. So here's what I came to. Here's the conclusion I came to. I'm not spoiling it for no one. This is just a theory that I have. I feel like the clues are there in chapter 1, and there's no reason to overlook clues that are already there, Because if his murder's going to be a big deal, I just like to follow along with stuff like that. Okay, so here's the cast, right? You see it? I can't see through the book, but I'll try. Okay, see the bottom, right? You see the cast? Look. All right, it's one thing to look at the face because that's what we're drawn to, but look at the bottom. Look at their shoes, right? Whose shoes are different? I don't know any of their names. I know Jack is right there. I know that's Legoshi, right? Whose is different here? I see it. One of the shoes is awfully familiar. Right? If we're looking for the build, body type, clear as day. That's just my theory, though. It has to be someone in the class. That's what they said. I don't know yet, but yeah. I have a strong feeling that's what it is. That's who it is. I'll show you one more time. Look at the shoes. Right? I know I'm not crazy. Watch too much Case Close for that. But, I have a strong feeling that's who it is. We just don't know why yet. I don't know how far into the chapter until that gets resolved, but that's my theory. It's all in the shoes. So I have a list of people, but I could be wrong. I'm excited to find out. This, for a first chapter, it wasn't bad. I really like the art style. It has that new manga, what's it called? That new mangaka style to it. It's very pencil-y, it's very unrefined. The artist is Paru. She's very much trying to find her style, trying to get comfortable drawing these characters. I love seeing that, Manga doesn't have to be refined 100 all the time, especially when you're still growing into your medium. I just love the style of everything. They're animals, but small details, like their fur, their features, their facial features, stuff like that. I most definitely like. Even how she draws the building, it's like, shade. It's like shaded. She uses a lot of shading in there. You see like pencil sketch lines and stuff like that. It just feels fresh to me, That's the same reason why I like Chainsaw Man and stuff like that. Anyway, that was Beastars Chapter 1. I hoped you liked it. Here at Action Bastard Academy After Dark. I'm looking forward to doing Chapter 2. I spent like 242. I spent 42 minutes talking about it, so that's pretty good on me. As you can tell, I get very passionate about stuff I like to talk about, and I can talk for a very long time about it. But for the sake of time, I'm gonna cut it off right here, and I look forward to doing more. Definitely look forward to seeing more of Legoshi. He seems like a gentle soul. He didn't step on he actually avoided stepping on the flower at the end. So, while he was walking away, that was the last panel. So he's definitely a gentle creature. That's the impression that I'm getting. I feel like the intro of the Netflix series, Wildside, kind of ruined me a little bit. I'm trying to subvert, I'm trying to just have my own opinion on it, But anyway, that was Beastars Chapter 1 review. Hope you liked it. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. in chapter 2. See ya.